ChoralEd. Welcome to another episode of ChoralEd. I'm your host, Micah Bland. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Today, in episode 4, we're talking about developing those positive relationships with students. It's interesting to note that we're here on episode 4, yet we really haven't talked much about specific choral pedagogical technique. And I think this is interesting to note because I think it just shows how important all these non-musical skills are. Your character as a person, your personality, your classroom management style, and now how you interact and how you develop relationships with students really set the tone for the classroom atmosphere, are so important to your success as a teacher. As choral educators, we have a great advantage compared to some of those core classes where maybe students have that teacher for one semester and that's it. We as choral educators have them multiple years, 3 years for middle school, 4 years for high school, hopefully not longer if they're failing classes or something like that. But we have many years to fully develop an authentic relationship with these students and have a real impact on their lives. For many of you teachers out there, I'm sure this is one of the reasons you became a teacher, that you had a teacher in your life that was a role model and someone who you looked up to and you had a relationship with, a positive relationship with. And so that's what we're kind of talking about today. So when it comes to developing these relationships, there's actually two areas we want to look at. There is, of course, the positive atmosphere that we can create, but also there are some things we should be aware of and try to avoid. So let's start off by talking about some interactions to be careful about and to avoid. It's unfortunate that we kind of have to be talking about this, and this YouTube channel is all about being positive, yet we need to take a moment here to talk about these possible issues. And the reason being, as you probably have seen in news media recently and the last several decades, the inappropriate relations between a student and a teacher have become more and more common, which is very unfortunate. In more recent years, it's been more about government officials and celebrities, and so it's kind of been, we've forgotten about these inappropriate student-teacher relations, and yet they still continue to occur. It's also been unfortunate because television and movies have made it into a romanticized thing, right? If you've seen some movies and TV shows in the last several decades, many I started watching, I just couldn't finish because they were romanticizing this inappropriate relations with students. So what can we do about it? What can be done? And the best thing that I can say to prevent this is to have very clear boundaries. That your boundary is so far back from that line of being inappropriate that there is no chance that there's anything ever going to happen that's inappropriate. Some teachers like to put that line pretty close, and they like to put their foot on it, or put one foot over the line. That's very, very dangerous, and that's where problems occur. They think, oh, I'm going to be fine, but they test the waters too much, and it becomes an issue. So let's talk about a few things of where to put this line, how to prevent these inappropriate relations from occurring. The first I say is to have clear expectations of not giving hugs. Now, there's nothing wrong with hugs. They're wonderful, a sign of affection. Some schools even go as far as to say, don't even touch a student, which I think is a little too far, because I think a high five, a handshake, very acceptable and fine. The issue becomes when a student maybe has a crush on the teacher. They start to want hugs on a daily basis, and this is becoming more of an inappropriate type of activity. Now, of course, there are circumstances where a student may be distraught for a reason. They didn't make an audition, they didn't get chosen, and they're very upset. There are instances where it is needed to comfort a student. It's best to do that when there are many other people present, another teacher present. For me, did not have to give hugs, and they were because there was another teacher who was able to step in and so forth. That was also present, and so I maintained my boundary of no hugs. The next area to consider is to be aware of not being alone with the student. So when you have another teacher present, another students present, that is the best way to protect yourself. Before school, after school, when there's only one student, try to avoid those situations. Make sure there's another student present. Say, make an excuse that you have to go to the office, and so they need to all leave. They need to leave the room, whatever it may be. That you are protecting yourself in that way. So what do you do though when you are teaching a voice lesson? For me, the office I had was given. I actually did not have a window in it, and so one of the best things to do is make sure people can see in what is going on in those voice lessons. And so I use giving the reasons of being transparent and avoiding any inappropriate possible issues. I would like a window in my door and the door to be replaced. And I literally, within the next day, I think it was, that door was being replaced, right? It might take a week or so for some school districts, but when you use language about being transparent and being, appropriate in the workplace, that will get changed very quickly, right? And so just be very careful that other people can look in and observe your voice lessons. And for me also, in those voice lessons, some voice teachers like to, say, feel my hands as you breathe out. I would not touch a student during that time, all right? I'd be at the piano, at my desk, somewhere else away from them, so there was no possible perception of inappropriateness. The next is to avoid being friends with students on social media or having them send you messages directly. That's either through Facebook, through text message, Instagram, whatever it may be. Many teachers have the rule to not friend a student on Facebook or add them on their social media until after they graduate. That was a rule I had, and graduation day would come, and I'd just go down the list and friend, or whatever it may be, of all those friend requests that had piled up over the years. And I tell them that too. I tell the students that, so their feelings aren't hurt. Well, so-and-so didn't friend me on, Miss Dr. Bland didn't friend me on Facebook. There's reason for that. I do not want them to be sending me private messages in any way, and there's also you sending them a direct message. That is another area to protect yourself from. Now, group chats where they cannot send a private message are great, and other applications are out there to help you send messages to the group and not allowing the student to send you direct messages, or keeping an aura of making it clear of your intentions, right? And not being shady in any way. The next thing to consider is to minimize encouraging comments about physical appearance. Someone gets a new haircut, I'm sure they want to hear, "Oh, your hair looks so nice today." "Oh, that dress you were wearing is so great." Those type of comments, again, when a student maybe has a crush on a teacher, that can start an inappropriate, they noticed my dress, or it becomes questionable activity there. So it's great to encourage them. I would do that in a group setting where they're in their tuxes and dresses, whatever your concert attire is, and to the group you say, "Oh, you all look so nice in your uniforms today," or whatever it may be. That it is a group atmosphere that those comments are being made. The last aspect is to keep conversations on appropriate topics. As students become more comfortable with you, as you develop those relationships, the conversations can at times become of the inappropriate nature. It is my opinion that you should not be giving relationship advice to students, because then they start sharing too much TMI, right? Too much information that you don't want to know. Now, of course, if they are being abused, whatever, and they share that, that's a good thing in many ways, that you can then intervene and go to the right people to report that type of abuse. But there are also conversations and inappropriate language that is used, inappropriate jokes, inappropriate curse words, as well as maybe talking about other students in front of them, talking about other teachers. Oh, that Dr. Bland, he always just gives everybody a bad grade, and just talking about, that's not really an appropriate conversation, even if it's true, right? To be bad-mouthing another teacher, other students, students' parents, whatever it may be. Just make sure that you are keeping the conversations on appropriate topics. So now that we got through all the kind of the negative aspects of what to avoid, and it's so important to have clear boundaries, let's talk a little bit about positive interactions and how to develop these positive relationships with students. When it comes to developing these positive relationships, it's so important that they are real and authentic. It's not a superficial kind of relationship where it's like, oh, hey, how's it going? Yeah, you have friends out there who you're friends with, but maybe you're just like Facebook friends, right? There is not a depth. It's not authentic. It seems kind of fake. And so to be real and authentic in developing that relationship. One of the aspects that you can try and to start things off for those who have maybe religious beliefs, to pray for those students, that you can connect with them and impact their life. For those maybe you have not the religious influence, that you use encouraging speech and encouraging talk, self-talk, that you say, I'm going to make a difference in that person's life today, right? I'm going to connect with that person on an individual level, that you are self-talking and that you are encouraging yourself to really go forth and do these things. The next thing to try, and many teachers do this, but it's kind of like New Year's resolutions, where they start it, but then it kind of falls off as the year goes on. And what we're talking about is greeting students at the door when they enter, and I would encourage you to do it as they leave, as they exit. Right? So that when they enter, you are encouraging them as they come in. You are greeting them individually, by name. It also helps with learning names, that you see them as an individual, as a human being, that you can ask them about different aspects of their life, a quick question, a quick hello. And as they leave, you can encourage them and say one final goodbye. Thanks for everything. You did great today in sight reading. I appreciated your leadership in the section, whatever it may be. And this goes a long way when it's a daily thing. It's to be expected. And I understand we as teachers get busy as the year goes on, which is why I say it's kind of like a New Year's resolution, that we kind of just forget about it because we're busy collecting money for a trip or a fundraiser or collecting forms. Yet it's so critical, in my opinion, to meet them at the door. Now, what I've done, and when I was working with other directors, when I was not the lead teacher for that class coming up, I was the one at the door greeting them and saying hello, right? And this is a little easier, and they can take care of getting them all settled and collecting any forms and so forth, and you switch off. I think that's so important, and it really helps to have two directors. I apologize to all you directors out there that are by yourself. It makes it a little difficult, but it still can be done and accomplished. The next thing to think about is to give students your full attention. Now, as students come in, you might be working on your computer, if it's before school or after school. Oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, good to see you. And you just keep working, right? But instead, I really encourage you to stop what you're doing, because what we are there for is them, right? The students. I hope you're there for this, and not just the paycheck, right? That you are there for the student. and that you give them your full attention. Oh, so glad to see you this morning. And, ask them questions. Again, authentic, not superficial type speech. And then maybe after 3-4 minutes, if you really have to get work done, you can say, it's been great talking, but I really have to get back to planning this trip, whatever it may be, right? And most of them are, oh yeah, no, I understand. They are understanding, but you have given students, as they enter, some time to talk with them and meet them. The next is to excessively encourage, that we are encouraging students all the time, that this, in my opinion, really develops that relationship. It's not like, yes, we have to discipline them, and it's not like we're always being negative, and that is someone I don't want to be around. If they're always negative about it, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? There is an encouragement aspect that people, as you're drawn to people who are encouraging, right? Things you can do are writing little post-it notes and putting them in their folders. Very simple. If you don't want to, have formal thank you notes or anything like that, I did those as well. But the post-it notes are really easy. Saying, great job in sight reading today. I really appreciated your leadership, whatever it may be. And I would do folder checks later, and I would see those post-it notes in many students' folders weeks and months after I put them in there. And so it just goes to show that that type of encouragement is really meaningful to them. I think many of them could have easily thrown it out and be done, right? And, oh yeah, that's great, thanks. And they appreciate it one day. But some people leave it in there, and that's really important to them. And that really develops that relationship, that encouragement, that you see them as a human being and as an individual, right? That you notice them and they are important to you. Take an interest in their extracurricular activities. This again shows them that you are interested in them as a person. That you can also ask them specific questions about, oh, how was football last night? Oh, I saw that touchdown. Great job that you scored. Very specific things. Again, not superficial, but specific to them as a person. Some students may have an absentee parent. Often many students have an absentee parent who doesn't come to their games, who doesn't take an interest in their life. And so by you taking an interest in them and their life, what they're doing, not to say that you take the place of that parent that's absent, but in my opinion, it goes a long way that they feel a connection to you because you are feeling a need that they desire from a parent, but they're not necessarily receiving that. And so you investing time to encourage, to be there, to show up at other events, I think is so critical. And the last thing is more about, recruitment in a way and developing those relationships. But how do you develop those relationships at the beginning of the year? It's so important to be individual and develop those relationships with every student. But that's not always possible. And that also is why it's helpful to have multiple directors. It's not like you're saying, okay, we're dividing these up in half and I'll connect with these people. No, it's kind of like natural. Some people connect with others better than some. That's just naturally how it goes. You can't be upset about that. You can't try to force it. That's important to be aware of. But when you are first starting out, maybe you're new to the school, try your best to figure out quickly who the group leader is and connect with them first, because then they will bring with them their group of friends. And then you can kind of connect with them individually whenever they bring their friends. And this also works for recruitment, right? They will bring their friends when you convince the group leader. They'll say, hey, that Dr. Bland, he is really cool. You should go check out choir. Or, hey, I'm going to go to the choir room before school. And then there's 3 or 4 people coming with them, right? Those group leaders can have a big impact. But again, make sure to divide your time evenly and not to show favoritism to certain people, right? That's going to be important, because then that can actually disconnect you from someone going, oh, they don't care about me. They're focused always on this person. dangerous place to be in. So as we conclude, I hope you find some of these ideas helpful and that you can really connect with students on an individual and authentic level, a deep connection that is meaningful. And so as always, thanks for watching, and I hope you continue to inspire the future leaders of our world through this wonderful gift we call music. Thanks.